So this is take 4 on the live question and answer session. Bit of a funny situation we had yesterday. I actually did it yesterday. Went for 38 minutes, and Jane was crook, so wasn't there. I was doing it by myself, and when I finished it to go around the back of the camera to turn it off, it didn't record. Only got 3 minutes because the phone got full. So then we fixed up the phone, got that empty, got it all set up again. I had to wait to get my brain clear. And then all of a sudden we lost the internet for some reason. Then the router wasn't working, and in the end I gave up yesterday. So some of you may have seen me come up and disappear. So that's what happened. And then we had 2 little issues this morning, and we just started the camera by mistake. Well, so this is actually take 4. So just a bit of an overview of what's happening now. Jean-Luc is back from Paris, did a lot of media last week, made Paris Match and lots of TV and bits, so that was good. He's back into town now, or back here for 3 days, so sometime in the next 3 days when he turns up, he'll be here and we'll do a one-on-one GGR live, and I'll try and get behind the man and we'll talk about all the other things besides just the GGR, because he's got a fascinating story, and that'll be quite interesting. Mark Slats is still here. His boat's down on the marina there, straight in front of me now, and he's now leaving Wednesday morning. So when he does leave, we'll activate the tracker again so that all the people, all the fans back home, you can actually get an idea of exactly when he's going to turn up. I'm not sure what they're going to plan, but I'm sure Karen, his media lady, is going to plan something, so you'll be able to be there at the dock or wherever when he arrives, and that'll be a bit of fun. We'll ask him to send a couple of messages as well, because he'll have a little sail on the way back. I can't believe he's sailing. I would never get back on the boat after that lot, after he, 200 and something days. But anyway, he's looking forward to that, and he'll probably come in again here this afternoon. He's still doing media. He's got to talk to the New York Times this afternoon, and so on. So plenty of things happening with Mark. He's got a lot of interesting people after him, which is great. Laurie Power has thrown his hat in the ring as well and said that he's looking at, he's quite keen to do 2022, and so we're trying to get him into the office here to talk about that, some ideas, but also when we do get him, we'll do a live with Laurie and talk about as best we can. His English is okay, a lot better than my French, I've got to say that, and we'll get sort of an update and a bit of a behind the scenes of what happened during the rescue, because we haven't really done that. We got messages from him when he was on the ship, which was giving us a bit of information, but we never really did his story. So we'll try and do that. We'll also do it in French. If Celine's not here at the moment, she's on a week's holiday. Christoph's buggered off to Australia for a month, so he's not here either. He's playing around with the foiling cats down there, doing some film work and so on. Caroline's here helping us with the French side, so we'll keep up with the French lives as well later on. So that's a bit of an overview there. If you're after the last coins, there's only a few left, and we've had some people come into the office as well and pick up some local French people, which is great. Now we've run out of the main poster, so it's the limited edition poster, which is a bit more expensive, but a bit of a treasure for the last people that are dead keen family, GGR family members. So I think we're down to just under 10 now. So because some have gone out the door by people picking up. The Jean-Luc's teddy bear's gone, so thanks for that, and the other Citran posters there. We're going to have Mark's teddy bear. Okay, we'll put that up shortly. We'll get Mark's bear, and he'll sign the back of the t-shirt, same as Jean-Luc did, and that'll be up for the biggest bidder between the time that he leaves here and when he finally arrives. So once he arrives back home, and that'll be on the tracker, then that will shut down. So if you're interested in getting hold of Mark's teddy bear that's been stuck up on the main bulkhead there for all the way around the world, you'll be able to bid on that. So keep an eye out on that. We'll probably put that up tomorrow afternoon or something on GGR Facebook. So what's happening with the entrance? We've had some fun and games with Aruku. We just spoke to him on the phone. It'll be up on SoundCloud shortly. It was his running backstay that broke. It actually broke, and he had a spare one on board, an original one, so he's modified the fittings on that. He had to climb the mast a couple of times. He's now done that, and it's repaired, and he's quite happy. He said, yeah, he's confident it'll get home. At the time, when it snapped, because he was on that tack, it was like under load, so he had to turn around, and that was that little hiccup that we saw on the tracker a few days ago. And in the course of doing that, he cut his finger quite badly, quite deep, and he did a temporary repair on it because he was pretty tired when he came down the mast, a couple of trips up and down. And so he went to sleep, and then he sort of neglected it a bit, and it got a bit gooey. So we suggested he talk to Dr. Spike at MSOS, and now he's just checking it, opens it every day, cleaning it out, and it should be fine. And then the good news is he caught another fish, so he got 2. You might have seen on the post that he caught a 10 kilogram marlin, and he managed to eat as much as he could. He can only keep it for about 2 or 3 days. He's dried a kilo or so. He's drying that, so that's cool. And then he caught another one, so the rest of it went over the side, which is kind of sad, but he can only do what he can only do. And he got another smaller one today, so he's managing to bulk up with food, which is good, and that means he'll be saving the days that he hasn't had to eat his other food and stretch that out a bit, because that's the big question: how much weight has he lost? I got a feeling we're all going to be shocked, because when he was in Hobart, we could detect it. I mean, all the entrants lose a bit of weight, that's normal, but when we asked Aruku, as you know, if you've been following this food story, he said, "Oh, I'm okay. I've got one meal a day of freeze-dried and 1 soup a day." And I thought, what? He's only halfway through and he's already eating very little. So I think we're gonna see a skinny Uku when he arrives. And Istvan, that's a whole story in itself. We've had some news back from the radio guys as well there, and he's and messages as well. Situation is his pedestal steering, which is a solid steering system. Normally you have a pedestal with wires, a chain and wires going down, and those wires go to a quadrant at the back that connects to the rudder, and those wires turn the thing. The system Istvan's got, which is standard on trade winds, it's a solid link system, so it has a solid rod. So when you turn the wheel, it sets some bevel gears that sort of working like this. You know, they go like that. And then it goes down with a solid rod, and another set of bevel gears going to this, turn it into an action at the back, which is sort of going like this, and that connects to the tiller, little tiller on the shaft, a little short one, like a stub tiller, and that turns the ship's rudder. The deal is that these bevel gears here are not meshing properly. They're skipping. Every now and then they're skipping, and you can feel graunching and so on. So he thinks, and he's absolutely convinced they're on their last legs. So that means that the whole steering system is going to fail very soon. So what he's done, you may remember the story, he had an emergency tiller that connects direct to the top of the rudder post, and that was originally, when the boat supplied, comes with steel, but it was a bit rusty, so he thought he'd make a nice new aluminium one. And of course the aluminium metal is softer. When it went on the top, he's tried to use it before and it just stripped the whole lot, so it didn't work. And he's managed to fabricate a new tiller head from gear he's got on board, stainless steel tube. He's cut a new keyway. Took him quite some time, but he's done that. The problem is the bit coming out of that new tiller head is quite short, so he's cut the aluminium tube off the other emergency tiller. He's put timber inside the stainless steel tube and inside the aluminium tube, just carved the timber out, and he stuck them in with epoxy. So there's like this bit of timber connected the two, and he's worried that might break, and if it breaks, he doesn't have any more epoxy glue to hold it in. So he's got an emergency tiller now. He's got the wind pilot wind vane connected to the emergency tiller, so it doesn't have to work through the wheel drum, which was also slipping. That's where the ropes from the wind pilot come through and wrap around a drum to turn the wheel. So for the time being, he's pretty happy. He just there's still some variables there, and he doesn't know what he's going to do. He may, his options are, if something's happening, it's Canaries or Azores, but let's hope he can get all the way through. Tapio's having a good time. He's been making good speed with plenty of strong southwesterly winds, and he's got favourable wind direction for the next few days. The barnacles are dragging, obviously, so that's slowing him down, and he's on his way. There's no way he's going to make the prize giving, though. And in fact, on that, the prize giving, we're getting a lot of requests now from people wondering what's happening with the prize giving here on April the 22nd. That's Easter Monday. We think, we can't confirm anything yet, we think that it might be a public thing where people can come to some sort of a concert or something, but we're not certain yet. It won't be decided until the end of this month, and as soon as we know, we will we'll let you know. And if you can get here, you'll be a part of what goes on. The Saab Delone are actually funding the prize presentation, which is fantastic. Part of their support, their ongoing support for GGR. And as I say, as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And hopefully see you here then. Okay, quick questions and answers. Excuse me. First one here is Laurie Power wants to know who's going to replace me in 2022. Well, first of all, there's a couple of issues here, and I get this asked all the time, and I'll try and explain it as best I can. My plan is to enter the 2022 GGR as an entrant, and I'm sailing in a Joshua boat, which is half built now in Turkey. We stopped it before the start of the race. We're about to start the build again in about 2 months when this is all wrapped up, and hopefully it'll be back here towards the end of this year in Les Sables d'Olonne. The only way I'll be able to get on that boat and compete is if we get a good sponsor for GGR, because it's going to take 3 or 4 people to replace me. Not that I work as hard as 3 or 4 people, but I do different subjects. You know, I do lives, I do writing, I'll do reporting, I do management, all sorts of things. So we need more people to do that. And if we get the sponsor, then obviously that relieves me of some of that pressure. I'll overview everything and keep it all going. We've got good systems now. But if we don't get that big sponsor, and I've given myself a timeline for that, towards the end of next year. So if we don't have the big sponsor by the end of next year, you know, I'm a realist. You know, GGR is very important, and I'm not going to let it fail. You know, the race is on and all that stuff, but I've got to make sure it gets run right. So it may be that I don't get to do it. And if that's the case, maybe I'll just bugger off myself after the GGR and do a loop in between editions. I'm not sure. But my plan at the moment is, quite seriously, I was envious of our entrance, you know, facing the storms in the Southern Ocean. I really want to get back and give it a go. It's hard to describe why, and that's the same with all the entrants that are now coming in for 22. There's huge interest, I've got to tell you. There's some real surprises. So watch this space. We'll probably start listing and start talking about the other entrants just after the prize giving or just before. So we'll put them up. We had thought we'd do it earlier, but there's so much going on with GGR now, we don't want to distract everyone. But there's some very interesting sailors lining up for 2022. So watch this space. Okay, Ruth Sander was asking, she listened to Mark talking about the fact that he was hallucinating in some of his rowing expeditions and even on this one when he gets really exhausted, and wonders what the state of what's the attitude of GGR if we thought one of the entrants was losing the plot, in other words, mentally unstable and become a danger to themselves and things like that. At what point would we instigate a rescue? Well, basically we never would, because you can't really determine what's going on in the mind of an entrant. We can read between the lines when they're on the phone. We know when they're up, you know, when they're having a real high. I can detect very easily when they're a bit depressed. That's natural. But, you know, it'd be nearly impossible to say to a rescue authority, hey, we think this guy or girl is losing the plot, they need to be rescued. It doesn't work like that. Unless they put an EPIRB on, or we've got serious other concerns like lack of comms and so on, it's really a hard thing to call. So we monitor them, and if we thought there was an issue, we would suggest they either ring us to have a chat, or more importantly, we would say ring Dr. Spike or whatever. We'd give them all the support and assistance we can, but it's not up to us to say, hey, you've lost the plot, we're coming to get you. Anyway, and she also asked when would the photos be available from the entrants that are photos and films of entrants when they've retired or when they've finished. Basically, when that happens is the Super 8 films and the 35mm films from the film drops go straight back to the campaign of the person, the entrant, and they can put them up anytime they want. They've been doing that. Susie put photos up. Mark's had little video clips put up, or film clips from the Super 8. And there's a couple other questions here. We actually, GGR actually put GoPro type cameras with remote controls, with microphones, with extension selfie sticks and all sorts of mounts on every boat before the start of the race. Film was the theme and the concept of the GGR, and most of the entrants got involved with that, but every boat actually had a GoPro type camera on, and that's for us to use to create the documentaries and also video news releases that we do at the film drops. So, but I'll talk a bit more because I've got some more questions on that in a minute. But yeah, they had them on, everyone had them on the boats. Interestingly though, some of them didn't want to film. When we got to Lanzarote, hardly any of them gave us any digital video stuff, and only a little bit of film because they're just too busy. Oh, you know, too busy. But in the end, you know, people got into it, and we have captured some really interesting stuff. Okay, so, but it's up to the entrants, and we share copyright, so whatever they get, we get, and we can release certain things at certain times as well, so stand by, it's going to happen. Bill Brooks read that goose barnacles are actually edible. They're apparently quite tasty. In fact, Stephen Eddy, our friend that's helping us with some translations at the time, thanks Stephen, He's actually eaten them. I've never eaten goose barnacles, but the Spanish get off on them. They're a real delicacy. They're incredibly expensive. They look edible, and I always say, I'll eat anything if I can catch it, So that's my new ambition, to try and find some good goose barnacles to eat. But he asks, is it good for Uku to save his food and stuff? It's not, because Uku's been cleaning the bottom. He some weeks ago, he dived on the boat, hadn't done it for 3 weeks, and as soon as he got in the water, the whole hull is covered with small goose barnacles again, so he's actually cleaned them off. So he hasn't got anything worth eating anyway. The only one that really has is tapio, and they just must be monsters. They'll be prize crop. They're probably as big as your thumb, and they'll be about that long now, and causing huge amounts of drag, big clumps of them. So maybe if he gets here, that's another story. Jane and I won't be here when Tapio gets here, which is a sad story. We actually get kicked out of the country on May the 3rd. Our 1-year visa is up, and we can't come back for 3 months. And that's right where Tapio will come in. So we're not sure what's going to happen there yet. But there'll be plenty of people here to meet him, and the other members of our team will be coordinating all that as well. So anyway, we've got a few issues to sort out there, because we would really like to be here when Tapio's here. Okay, Michael Lomonaco. Oh, this was interesting. Interesting name, Michael Lomonaco. I'm dyslexic. When I wrote this down, I put it back to front. It was Lomonaco too, because that's what I do. I have real problems with B's and D's and G's and J's. I can still look at them now, and I cannot work out what's a B and a D and a D and a J. But the reason I'm talking this story is because the other day, once we finished the interview with Mark, we're just chatting away, and it turns out Mark is quite dyslexic as well. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've read a lot about dyslexia and so on, because I am, and there's a lot of adventure friends I know are the same way. Jessica Watson was dyslexic. There's a whole pile of people, Antarctic guys I know are dyslexic, other sailors. And the reality is that it's well known fact that people with dyslexia, that are dyslexic, they're really brilliant problem solvers. They think outside the box. It's part of the process in the brain. And I was just blown away. Mark and I were both laughing when he said, oh, geez, he's really badly dyslexic as well. Well, he's dyslexic. And that's probably the nature of what he is and why he's driven to all these adventures. And he's good at what he does, because he can solve problems, whereas other people look there and sit there scratching their head. And it's exactly the same as me, because they do lots of different adventures. Anyway, back to Michael's question. How much are entrants spending outfitting their boats for the GGR? This is an up and down question. It depends on the entrant. Loic Lepage suggested it cost him about €70,000 when he lost his boat in the campaign and everything, so he spent about €70,000. When I was doing mine, my whole boat project was going to cost less than €100,000 with a really nice boat and all the rest of it. There's an article that you want, or one of my columns, one of my thoughts columns in the GGR website. It's in April of last year, and it's called Inspiring Since 1968. It's got a picture of Istvan's boat on it. He's travelling 35, and I give you a budget there to do it, and it works out at about you need to do a nice GGR, you need about €110,000. That'll buy your boat, pay for your entry fee, get all your equipment that you need for the GGR, and get you around the world. And when it's finished, your boat still should be worth about €60,000 or €70,000. So it doesn't have to be hugely expensive. Having said that, if you look at Philippe Pesce's boat, he's got that up sale for $235,000, and that's a lot of money. So he spent a lot of time and money preparing his boat. Others, another entrant for 22, I won't mention his name he spoke to Falmouth Boatworks about if he bought a Rustler, he wanted to do this refit, how much was it going to cost? And his budgeted was about €120,000 for just for the refit. That's after you bought your Rustler 36. And I know entrants in this edition of the race that spent more than that. They spent something like £160,000 to do the refit. Then they had to buy sails, and then they had to buy the boat. So it depends what you do. If you're a lawyer and a legal guy and you're getting paid $500 an hour or something, why not just go and pay a shipwright that's getting £50 or £60 an hour to go and do the work? Because you can make more money and you pay them. But if you've got not a lot of money and you've got time, you've got 3 or 4 years to prepare, you can do all the work yourself, and it's a lot of fun, and you get to know your boat. You save a lot of money. So the budgets go up and down like that. It just really depends. But you don't, this GGR is for everyone. Anyone that wants to do it, there's no excuses. I took 8 years before I finally got into the BOC challenge, and that was a huge effort, and we spent a lot of money doing it. But you know, someone, if they really want to do it, had no money now, give them 8 years and you're probably crossing the start line. So it varies. Okay. The Nigel and Ethan was wondering about the movies from Jean-Luc and Mark Slats, because he'd really love to see the storm sequences and stuff, you know, and they're back. So the deal is, just to explain a bit more about this, with the digital video cameras on the boats, the GoPros and so on. In fact, Mark had a really good one. He put on a Garmin 360 camera, which has got a fantastic system where you can just bolt the camera down, and and even though the camera's rocking and rolling like that, it picks up the horizon electronically, and it basically acts like an internal gimbal. So some of you may have seen the 2 minutes or so of video footage from Mark's storm in the Indian Ocean that we released once he came through Hobart. Because what happens is they give us the digital cards from those GoPros and so on, and we don't normally give them back to the entrance. This was the deal. They get their film, the Super 8 film, they get that back straight away, and they can do it with whatever they want. The digital stuff, we hold that until after the finish of the race as an incentive for them to use film. But once it's finished, they get it all back. So now Mark has got it all back, and Jean-Luc has got it all back. You'll see it in TV and all sorts, the whole lot. But prior to that, in Lanzarote and Hobart, we would take about 2 minutes out and we would release that in what's called a VNR, which is a video news release. And that would go to all the media, okay? And they could use that on TV or whatever they want. And we take photos from that as well, which we release to the news for magazines and so on. And once we've released it, you know, those special little clips, their team has them as well, and they can release them as well. But the majority of it, all the real long, you know, camera stuff, they've got that now, and you'll see it come up all over the place. In the video news releases, we never go to what's called heart to heart. When Mark is sitting there talking on camera, talking about the storm, oh, it was terrible, da da da. We never give that to media, because that's not news, that's personal, and that's the stuff that you make your documentaries from. So, and I've seen a lot of stuff that Mark has got. It's fantastic. He's got great material there for a doco. All of that stuff as well, the juicy bits will be in the GGR doco. And Jesse's been here, Jesse and Tina filming everything, and in Hobart and at the start here in the Sable Lane. And we're getting really good material for the documentary. In fact, it's shaping up really well. We're not sure when that's going to be released, because we've got no funding, and post-production is quite hugely expensive, but we're working on it, and hopefully it'll be you know, later this year. So yeah. Okay, Howard Bassendone wants to know what's Susie up to. Well, basically Susie is obviously pretty well, but she's still getting over the whole issue of GGR, and it's not uncommon. When Gregor and Tommy were you know, picked up and taken off their boats, Tommy's taken, you know, I talk regularly to Tommy. We're on Facebook all the time. It took a long time for two things for Tommy. One is to heal his back and the physical injuries, and the other is to get over the whole sudden change and you know, life upheaval of not being in the GGR. You know, he would watch the GGR on Facebook and things, and it was really hard for him because, you know, he wanted to be there. You know, he wanted to be racing against Mark. He wanted to be here a week before Jean-Luc got in and win the GGR. He wanted to complete the adventure, and it was just stopped, just like that, bang. And so your life is not put on hold, but it's just turned upside down because you end up, you know, back home and say, what am I doing here? I'm meant to be out there. And the same with Gregor, you know. So with Tommy, there was things we didn't talk about when we were there. It took him a while to get over that. And now I'd say Tommy's fully recovered. He'll be probably watching this. He's declared publicly he wants to do the 22 GGR. He'll be working towards that. So it's hard. Gregor, when it all happened with Gregor, you know, Gregor sent us, you know, thanked us all and all that sort of stuff, and then went quiet, and it's been pretty tough. And really now we're just getting communications because he's got the big effort to go and pick up his boat and salvage it. So they're hoping that they'll get underway maybe this coming weekend. They've got the boat organised to go out there. They're getting the gear organised, people, and it'll be on. And they'll go out and hopefully bring his boat back, which will be an incredible story. It'll be quite funny, but fantastic. And so Gregor may, if he gets the boat back, we may see him line up at the 22 GGR with the same boat, and that would be fantastic. So he's getting over it. Loic's was pretty straightforward, I suppose. He dismasted reasonable weather, picked up pretty well with the help of the Chileans and stuff, and he's been with family and friends now, so I'd say Loic is firing. You know, he's fully recovered and is there. And Susie is going through that same process. So I'm confident that we'll see her and hear from her, and you'll hear all the stories when she's ready. But it's tough. So so she's fine. We know that. We've had little messages, but you know, she's still you know, still contemplating what's going on and what she might want to do in the future and things like that. So watch this space. Tim Ball wants to know, will we give GoPro cameras to all the entrants in 2022? And because they'd love to see a compilation of all the different footage. Well, we are making the documentary for this edition, and yes, there will be a new feel to the style of coverage of the GGR in 22. It'll be exactly the same as what you see now, but we're confident we'll have the budget to have a full-time video editor, and we'll be getting more footage off the boats. There's a film drop in Lanzarote, you know, and then there's another one in Cape Town this time. So 22, there's one in Cape Town, and then there will be one in Hobart, and that'll be it. So when we get that footage, we're going to train the entrants in 22 on filming techniques, and there will be a huge incentive for them to actually film and work hard at filming. So when we get that raw material with our full-time editor and really cool groovy music and all that sort of stuff, we'll produce some, you know, what I call high-class videos. Right now, our budgets have been zilch. You know, Christoph's doing all sorts of things, you know, taking photographs, doing things, and we just didn't have the capacity, we didn't have the budget. We look at some of the other big events and some of the money they spend on their video clips. Just one of their video clips, you know, one of their big ones could blow our entire budget that we've had this year. So you know, we are looking forward to not changing the concept of the GGR, but providing a lot more media, I'd say, you know, to use. So you'll get more of a visual image from it. There'll never be any satellite gear coming off the boat, so don't ever expect that from GGR. But the film drops, there's 3, more gear, more people, more creativity, more money. We can do a lot more. So look forward to that. Vivian Ogden wants to know what's the story with Istvan's gearbox issue. Well, I think I've updated you there because we've got the info, you know, so no need to go on that one. Steve and Eddie wants to know about Istvan's health. You know, he mentioned in the previous phone call that his hands are a problem and his teeth are a problem. Now, I've got to tell you, his hands are a problem. In fact, we've got all the information back. You know, we decided there was a safety call involved, and basically you might have seen in Hobart, he had a mention about the fungus in his fingernails, and it's got a bit worse. It's a little bit gross even, and he admits that there's some sort of fungus in his boat, and now he's got like black hairs growing underneath his fingernails. That's his words, not mine. He says it's really horrible. And the fungus is all through the boat, and he's really worried about the implications because you've got spores flying around the boat. He's breathing it in, and you can smell it, all that sort of stuff. And Dr. Spike has had numerous communications with the first aid kit. There's nothing specifically for this type of issue with a fungal infection that can cure it, okay, or solve the problem. All we've got is hydrocortisone cream and a couple other things that stabilise it. So it's not going to get any worse, but it's not going to get any better either. So this fungus infection is a case of watch this space. He should be within a month, and he'll, you know, let's hope it's okay. His tooth is going up again. It happened back, you know, previously, and he took antibiotics. He thinks it's a root job, the root of the tooth. Something's happening there. His gum's all swollen, so he's onto that as well. So yeah, Istvan's always struggling there, and we hope he's going to be okay. We're not overly concerned at the moment, but the fungus stuff on the fingernails is just doesn't sound too good. But anyway, Robert Reynolds wants to know, Mark had some mast problems that we spoke about previously. The deal there is, this is when the boat's pounding to windward. If this is the mast and this is the cabin top, there's a hole, and the mast goes through this hole. It goes like that, and the hole is bigger than the mast. So to stop it moving around in the hole, you have these rubber packers and so on, and because he was going to windward, pouncing to windward for so long, that started to crumble, and there was some movement in the hole going through the cabin top. So he packed it all up with timber wedges and bits of timber and so on, and secured it again so it's not moving. And that's important, because if it has any move, every time it goes, it's just pounding, and it can start to affect the actual aluminium of the mast itself. So you can't afford to have it moving. He fixed it, it's not moving, he's got all the way home, and he's taken off again. He did a good job of repair. So all is fine. A couple more questions and we're done. Timothy Lorenz, is weight really a big problem in these style of boats? It's quite heavy, minimum 6,500 kilos, even heavier. And he says 200 kilograms, it's not really going to slow you up. Well, the issue is that every little bit counts, and if you, weight on a sailboat makes a difference to speed. So even if it's only 1% of your speed, which is a tiny amount, 1%, if you arrive here 200 days later, 1% is 2 days over the whole course of 28,000 miles or something. So yes, weight is important, and Mark threw off a lot of gear off the boat at the beginning because he was worried that he was going heavier than Jean-Luc. Now they were side by side, and so yeah, it's a mindset as well. If you're being really competitive, it just gets you into that routine. So every bit does count, even on boats like this. Mark Dyson wants to know, what documents do we check after the end of the voyage? Well, there's 3 key ones. The first one is we check the communications log, because they've got to log all the stations they've talked to, and whenever they get free positions, we check that. The big one is the navigation log. That's for the calculation of all their their sextant computations. Go through the logs and tables and come up with a position line, and you plot that and you work out where you are. So on both of Mark's and Jean-Luc's, Jean-Luc had about 270 calculations, I think it was. We counted the pages, I remember it before, and looked through and worked one through, and it all looks fine. And Mark's is the same, but boy, he had an interesting problem. When the water came in the boat, he very nearly lost his sort of tables and almanacs. They were nearly ruined by the water. And if he had lost them, he wouldn't have been able to navigate. And that's a very interesting point. He would have had to go to Chichester class and break open his GPS, but he made it. The whole boat down below had obvious signs of water damage, and even his logbooks. He managed to dry things out and write them up there. So it's logbook, communication log, navigation log, and a few other bits as well. So the last question from John Tisdall, can I comment on the sails, because no one's really had any drama with sails, and that's exactly right. The sailcloth and the sails themselves have stood up really well. In the beginning, I remember talking to Jean-Luc about sails. I said, "Oh, you're taking a spare mainsail?" "Oh, what for?" "One is okay." And then he had the least number of sails, I think, of all the boats. He only had like about 7 sails. It was just incredible, because you can take up to 11 sails on the boat. And so yeah, Jean-Luc only had some work on one of his heavy weather jibs, but it was all fine. Didn't blow out any spinnakers. Mark's slats was pretty much the same. He had a few little repairs to do, but they all returned. And on the strength of that, I've actually decreased for 2022 the total number of sails you can have. So now it's cut back to you can only have 10 if you've got 1 mast and 12 if you've got 2 masts. So yeah, that's all good. All right, that's about it, I think, and I hope this one gets through, because this was the 4th time we've tried that. And Jane's back, so we can shut it down now. Jane, thank you. See you again.